Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on a journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney
and Kelly. Hey, Sydney.
Hey, Mom. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited today.
Today we have our guest, Ana Maldonado.
Yay. A return guest.
Yes. We have her on before. Can you just list your credentials really quick one more time?
Yes. I'm a licensed professional counselor, LPC. I got licensed in January. So the last time I was here, I was an associate. So yeah, I know. So crazy. So crazy.
That's cool.
Fully licensed. I run with the big dogs now. So
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Other credentials, I guess I'm a daughter and sister and all that, but no one cares about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is coming out in May.
Yeah.
And we talk about May flowers.
Mayflower. So I'm having a dilemma because I really love the purple sage, and I have a pot outside that I like to plant it in, and it dies every year, because I'm that way. But the purple, which I really think is prettier, it attracts the bees.
It does.
And the hummingbirds. And I want the hummingbirds, but I don't want the bees. Last time they dug and they planted themselves within my... Yes. And it was so scary. They just come out when you'd water it, they'd fly at you. And so, I know we're supposed to help the bees.
I know.
I have a friend that's a beekeeper.
Yeah.
And she talks about how they pollinate, how important it is.
I know.
So it's a dilemma. Do I care that much about that? I really should.
Maybe you just put it in the very far corner.
Maybe I put it out in the middle of the yard and then have a red one. I don't know.
Not by the
I want them both.
But no, I don't do. Do you do plants, Anna? Do you do?
I like fake plants.
Yes.
There you go.
We have a lot of orchids in my house. My mom is the caretaker of the plants, thank God, because I think if she wasn't taking care of them, I'd step up. But as of now, I'm lazy with plant care.
Yes.
I can't. I cry. I plant stuff every year, like in just the potted plants outside,
and they die.
And they die. We try to see how long they can last, but then you forget to water or whatever. Life happens, and I forgot about them.
Yeah.
So.
No. I'm not good at plants either.
No.
But no, I know. This is the dilemma now. Bees or no bees?
Bees or no bees. That's right. That's the question.
Yeah.
To be or not to be? Oh, that was bad.
That was so bad. Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally different topic now.
Yes.
So we are discussing the different types of therapy. I think it's a good thing to be informed about different methods.
Because I think when you say something, you maybe talk to a therapist or go to counseling. They think, well, I'm just going to talk.
But that doesn't always have to be.
And but then I learned to learn that, there are different types of therapies.
Yeah. So
and they all have weird acronyms. So you have to spell, you can't just use CBT or whatever. It's, you gotta.
Yeah. You gotta actually. So there were a few that we asked specifically to kind of prepare, and that's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
There you go.
DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and then EMDR, which I can't remember what that
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
That's it. And then you said that you would have one more, maybe, if you wanted.
Yes, I prepared one more, and if we have time, we will talk about it. It's called internal family systems.
Ooh,
which is
that's a good one.
Oh, that would,
Yes. So let's just start off with the first one. Yeah, because I feel like cognitive and dialectical, you can kind of compare, contrast type of.
Yeah, no, and I wanted to just really add that I'm super grateful that you guys care about this kind of stuff and educating people about this kind of stuff, because it's true. People come to therapy, don't really have any sort of expectation. They may have a specific idea of what they would want, and then they get paired with someone else, and then they don't think that therapy is for them or whatever. And so if any of these stand out, when you call for a therapist, if you call Counseling for Life, for example, just plug in you can specifically ask for these types of things, right? I want someone who does DBT because I think that's what I would be, best served by, or I want someone who does more deep work, so that would be psychoanalysis or IFS or EMDR, so it's so good that we're going to be talking about this, and then you can kind of get a good idea of what direction you want to go in. Something to keep in mind is that every theory has its strengths and weaknesses. Every theory has its truth and golden nuggets, I guess, that I think most therapists will pull from, even if they aren't like specialized in that particular thing. So I don't really do a lot of CBT. I'm more focused on psychoanalytic therapy. So I use a lot of present moment, here and now stuff. I use a lot of trauma-informed stuff like IFS, internal family systems, EMDR, inner child work. So I like to do a lot of like, we're going to feel our feelings today.
Yeah.
I like the intense stuff. Specialist. I guess I ended up in the right place, but I still pull a lot from CBT because CBT is all about truth-based thinking, right? And that's never gonna hurt somebody. So I just keep that in mind too, right? That like some of these might stand out to you. Keep in mind that they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but also see which one resonates with kind of you, your issue, what you're looking for, the way you want to grow, right? So
definitely.
On to the first one. So yeah, I know. Sorry. So like you introduced, we're doing cognitive behavioral therapy first. So CBT is actually the most evidence-supported treatment, mostly because it's the most researched one. It's one of the easiest ones to systematize. And so you can kind of have a range of what CBT looks like. Some people have worksheets and homework and, like charts and all that kind of stuff. It can also just be in a session talking to your therapist and her being like, well, is that true? So again, this can look like a range of things, but the core belief of cognitive behavioral therapy is that behavior is shaped by your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. And so unhelpful behavior is rooted in unhelpful thoughts. So the solution is to look at your thoughts and to identify if they're helpful, if they're correct. A lot of the times they're not correct. Right. And then to install new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
There have been a couple of things every now and then in my sessions where it's like, well, this is a CBT technique, it might be able to help just redirect some stuff. Yeah, it's cool. But you have to be pretty diligent, I would think, about like, because if you don't have the pattern and if you're not consistent with it, then it's like, that's not going to work. Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds like it's catching your awareness.
Yes.
What you're thinking, rather than running with it.
Yes. So it does require a lot of awareness of your thoughts, which I would say most of therapy requires a lot of self-awareness, and a lot of people come in. A lot of people come in with very little self-awareness, and so but that's like the beauty is like if you spend an hour a week thinking about what you think about, you start catching it a little bit more. So it's not all hope is lost. So even like a simple way that I install CBT sometimes. I use it a lot more with like younger kids. But I'll have them make a chart. Okay, and then on one chart it's like the thought, right? So maybe it's like I have to get an A in this class, right? Or I have to be married by 30, or I have to blah blah blah, whatever, right? I don't know, like whatever people struggle with, right? And then next to it, the next pillar is like the belief. Right. So, because usually that's kind of like what drives a lot of our anxious thoughts is that there's actually an underlying belief like below all those things. Right. And so, like, I have to get an A in this class because if not, I'm a failure. Right. Real threat to that. But it's you, like, with your thoughts coming into agreement with something that's not true. Right. And so we look at that. We're like, is that actually true? Right. I'm a loser. Or I'm not good enough if I don't have dad's approval, or I'm, we make really big generalizations a lot of the times. And so then we look at, okay, let's challenge that, right? So let's reason through, okay, if you don't get an A, if you get a B plus,
Yeah.
like, because that's the other option.
Yeah.
Are you a failure? Like, probably not. Like, would you still get into college? Probably, so you still really question, like, are your thoughts even accurate? Because a lot of the times they're not, and so then so the next, after challenging, the next pillar is like the new belief, right? And then the new thought that you put into practice, right? So it would be, I'm not a failure, right? I'm learning, right? I'm growing, right? These less rigid thought patterns, and then practicing it, right? So then when you get a test and your instinct is to be like, oh my God, like, no, just like, no, the new thought is, I'm going to do my best because I'm growing.
Yeah.
And I will still be great regardless of what happens.
Yeah. Definitely. I like it.
And you live like that's true. And sometimes, like, the living as if that's true, even if it doesn't feel true, is what's healing, right? Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the general, what is CBT?
Yes. Yeah. And it sounds like that's something you could apply to a lot of different issues. People, depression, anxiety, a lot of different issues people can deal with. Yeah.
Yes. I will say that too, that CBT is definitely one of the most applicable kinds of issue. Yeah, you can use it on a lot of things, right? Anxiety, depression, addiction. That's a big one. People don't use their thought process. They're usually very reactive. So helping someone be aware of, like, what are you thinking when you want to grab the bottle, right? It's like a lot of shame, and then the bottle's gonna help. It's like, it's probably not. Like, actually, create a lot of problems, actually. So, or relational issues. I like to use it a lot with that, where, like, oh my gosh, this friend may hate me because I blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, have we, like, talked to them?
Yes. Oh, that's good.
Awesome. I'm trying to be gentle,
Yeah.
I didn't mention that, but like, CBT also requires, like, practicing new life skills based on the thoughts. So sometimes you can do role playing. You could do, like, again, with, like, the relational issues, I do a lot of, like, well, let's assume that your friend doesn't hate you, and, like, how would we
how would we talk about it?
How would we, like, seek evidence there, right? Like,
nice.
So that's CBT. So I would say I really like CBT, but as a trauma specialist, I do have my qualms. I think it's good, but it doesn't really ask why. It asks, like, what do we do moving forward, which is important, right? Like, you should be future oriented, but it doesn't ask, like, why do you think you're a failure if your grades suffer, right? Why do you think your friend hates you?
Like, what got you there in the first place to that?
Yes, it does not really ask that. Yeah, so a lot of people maybe see results because they're thinking in a new way, but there's no actual deep work completed. So what the research actually shows is that unless if you're, like, really working to maintain it regularly, the treatment benefits go away after about 2 years.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you, again, I don't think that's, like, entirely, like, you would regress to the exact same, because if you're living as if things are true, even if they don't feel true, you should see a shift in just, like, you should have healthier relationships, and healthier relationships heal, right? So it's not that, like, I think you regress entirely, but because you're not getting to, like, the root cause or the root source of the belief, right? You're not actually moving past, like, the reason you began to think that stuff. And as a trauma specialist, we'll kind of get into it later, but trauma is largely a somatic experience. So CBT can help you, like, coach yourself down, right? Like, if you get anxious, you know how to get yourself back to, like, feeling better. But that knee-jerk reaction of anxiety is a deeper rooted problem that CBT isn't going to address.
Okay.
So it has its, its weakness in that way. But again, overall, like, truth is never going to hurt someone. Like I said, the most evidence-supported treatment helps someone live in reality, because we can, like, create such fake worlds.
Yes.
Very
expensive.
Yes, where, like, everyone hates us, and we like will never succeed, and we'll never, like, it is like insane how much, and me included, I say we, like, how much we can do that. We can create these entire alternate realities based on assumptions that don't even make sense if you really examine them. So it helps people really, like, live practically and in the present moment. And it's pretty easy to systematize. So it's easy to find, I think, good therapy when
Mm-hmm.
you're for CBT, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very systematic.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to apply. So I think a lot of people are good at it. Like you'll receive a lot of good treatment.
Mhm.
Yeah. From it. Cool.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
that's CBT.
Yeah. And then dialectical, DBT.
DBT.
Okay, we're just gonna like go for it.
Is that okay?
Because
you have a question?
my question is, and this may be jumping ahead, and I think once we hear the others, it'll help, but you probably use both
Oh yeah.
at some point, right?
Both what?
Both various types of therapies.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like you were saying, this just gets to this, but if you want to get to the why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then use the
Well, that's why I figured we can go through them.
That's
and
then,
then
so I jumped ahead.
tie it all together at the end.
But I just want to.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know how you
And now I'll go back.
Okay, so dialectical behavioral therapy. So dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, which is what we'll probably call it from now on, is actually a subset of CBT. So it has a lot of the same roots of CBT in terms of like it's really focusing on thought patterns. It's really looking at like what are the universes that you're creating and are they real? But the biggest thing that DBT focuses on is emotional regulation and kind of creating stability. So CBT could help with self-esteem issues, addiction issues. It could help with kind of just like a range of stuff, but DBT is really looking at how do we create stability for this person, right? And again, like it's kind of what Kelly, you were saying. All of these things have their strengths, and all of them can be interwoven to make a more holistic treatment. So DBT is actually really important if you're going to do trauma work, because trauma work requires so much stability.
Yeah, lots of emotional stability. Yeah.
Right. You need a lot of emotional stability to be able to face the wounds of your trauma, but you also need a lot of emotional stability that if things are getting stirred up, you are not just like going out of session and berating everybody. Right? Like you have like pouring out. Yeah. You need to be able to have like an internal stability, right? Like if you're doing a lot of intense work for an hour a week. So DBT is really, really helpful if you're going to do deeper work or if you're just looking for a more stable kind of life. And so they have actually 4 main concepts. The first is mindfulness. So present awareness in your body, thoughts, and feelings, right? So we were talking about like how it's so important to be self-aware. That's really what mindfulness is trying to do. A lot of people, especially people who seek DBT therapy, are very reactive, right? We feel hurt, or we feel afraid, or we feel triggered, and we just like go for it, right? We just like and so obviously not helpful in every situation. You could really cause a lot of issues. So one of the concepts from DBT that I actually really like is they talk about wise mind, right? So are you in normal like reactive mind, or are you in wise mind? Right? Are you like actually centered? Do you feel mindful of your body, your thoughts, and your feelings? Do you feel in control of yourself? Do you feel calm? Right? So it's always asking those questions like, are we actually experiencing stability? Are we investing in our what's called the window of tolerance and all that kind of stuff? That's more like jargon stuff, but I know I'm trying to avoid that. And then the other 3 pillars is distress tolerance. So again, if you're going to do trauma work, this is really important, but in general, this is important for life, right? You need to be able to tolerate hard things, hard emotions, feeling rejected or feeling unsafe or feeling whatever. Obviously not to a point where you're like throwing yourself into unsafety. But, you need to be able to handle if someone tells you no, or if someone doesn't give you your way, or if things are stressful, right? While staying in your wise mind, right? You need to be able to handle staying present to yourself while also being uncomfortable, which again, if you're doing trauma work, is like really important because it's really uncomfortable to look at your trauma.
Oh, it is. So it is.
So it is. The third is interpersonal effectiveness. So again, a lot of these people, because they're so reactive, have a really hard time maintaining relationship. And I would say like if we're just like living in reactivity, like our relationships, right?
No one's gonna have good relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And then lastly is emotional regulation. So like when you're distressed, how do we bring you back down? Right. Okay. So mindfulness is like this awareness happening like day to day, moment to moment. Am I present to myself? Emotional regulation is I'm already out and I'm not present to myself. How do I bring myself back down? Right. So those 4 things. I guess like a really important detail I should have mentioned is DBT was originally designed for borderline personality disorder and highly suicidal clients. So that's why it's so focused on, how do we live in peace, calm? Are we attentive to our bodies? How do we have healthy relationships? Right, because people with borderline tend to either idealize or feel totally abandoned by. They're kind of on the extremes relationally. And so how do we have like effective, healthy right? So that's what it was originally designed for. But the really amazing thing is that most treatments were designed for a particular issue, and then they're like, oh, so helpful for all of us.
For everything else.
Because everything's kind of on a spectrum. And so even though maybe none of us, hopefully, none of us have like full-blown borderline personality. Because it's a hard thing to navigate and live with. We all have like moments where maybe we're a little reactive or we have a hard time regulating or we're frustrated in a relationship or maybe we idealized a relationship. So all of these things are things that we as people all struggle with, right? And so that's why it still ends up helping a bunch of other people.
That's cool. So did it come about, I mean, because you said it's a subset of CBT, so I'm guessing like we had CBT and then this was kind of formed.
My understanding is yes. I do believe DBT is a much newer therapy. CBT is definitely one of the older ones. So
gotcha.
Yes.
Yes. And then strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So the weaknesses is it requires a lot of buy-in from clients. That's I guess more of a struggle on my end.
Because they have to be comfortable enough. With who they're talking to.
Well, and it requires a lot of like doing stuff outside of sessions, right? So like you have to choose to practice deep breathing, right? You have to choose to like step back in your relationships and re-examine them, right? It's easier to just be reactive. Right? It's easier to like just get pissed off. And so it requires a lot of commitment to change that permeates beyond just an hour of learning skills, right? You can learn skills for an hour every week for 10 years, but if you don't choose to walk away and like look at where in your life are you going to put this in and how can you be better each day, that's really hard. So a lot of clients, because they've lived so reactive for so long, like they learn these skills and then they don't actually implement them. So if you're going to do DBT, get ready to be uncomfortable. Because especially because like distress tolerance is one of the pillars, right? Like it's uncomfortable to not be reactive. It's uncomfortable to like hold your tongue and calm yourself down and say like what is happening inside of me right now and how do I get myself back to like the ground, right? Like that's hard work. So all therapy is difficult in its own way. Like it's hard to face your wounds and it's hard to be uncomfortable, but DBT requires a lot of that because it's a lot of learning things that most people have never practiced in their lifetime.
It's fascinating.
The gain is like so worth it. But
that's what I was thinking. Is I feel like DBT would almost it still has an aspect where you're not necessarily always focused on your path, but it feels like that'd be a little bit more of like a longer lasting change because of that buy-in with it.
Yes. And it's like if you do the skills, it really can change your life. Like you can have healthy relationships. I mean, like that's again, like I would say the other weakness, right, is it also doesn't go deeper like CBT. Right. This is teaching you how to live in a healthy way. It's not looking at where did you get unhealthy, right? Where did you when did relationships become this place of reactivity or defensiveness. Why? What did mom and dad teach you about relationship? What did ex-boyfriend or ex-husband or whatever or ex-wife, like what did they teach you about relationships that's now made you so defensive or so like in need of controlling things all the time or so, you know, so that's always like, I, as a trauma specialist, I'm always going to say that's a qualm I have. Some people are like, good, I don't want to go deeper. A lot of people are like that actually. And so,
and I think about that, somebody practicing those, recognizing that, okay, so this week I reacted 5 times, whereas last week I did 6. I held my tongue once, so I made marking the
little,
because it's the tiny steps that end up being huge later.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I think we're a culture that goes instant. You know, and this any therapy, but this especially sounds like it just takes over and over. And then one day you go, wow,
I had a whole day.
I had, I met that situation in a healthy way. For me and the other, you know, but
a big emphasis of DBT is acceptance and change, right? So a lot of validation and a lot of like, yeah, it's okay where you are and like you want more, and they can exist at the same time, right? Like 2 truths that feel contradictory actually usually don't contradict and can be true. So you'd be a great DBT therapist, Kelly.
Yes, that's funny.
Yeah, so that's one of their strengths actually, is that balance of acceptance and change. Some other ones is, you know, like I said, it doesn't require going deeper. Some people don't feel ready. Some people have really severe trauma histories, like don't want to go back there, or like feel so like that's so daunting that they're just trying to live life better and they need to enjoy life for a little bit. So no, I think that can be a weakness, but also a strength. And then it stabilizes complex issues. So a lot of people get frustrated because CBT maybe is a little more superficial. So this one can really help with like the more complex things like borderline, PTSD, anxiety and depression, or, you know, like a range of problems to be brought into a more stable place. Basically anything that's like really reactive can be brought into stability with DBT. And that gives a lot of hope to people. So
definitely.
Also
cool. But plug what you want to plug.
What you've got coming up.
So,
you said.
Yeah, if this has inspired you to want counseling, I'm always going to plug my practice. So I work at Counseling for Life. It's the number 4, Counseling for Life. And so we are actually really good about, if you call the front office and you ask for specific modalities or specific issues, they're pretty good at knowing like what is it that we're good at or what is it that we use. We're like on our website, it'll say who's EMDR trained or certified. And so we're pretty good at finding good matches. So if you want to go to therapy, go to Counseling for Life. And specifically with me, I'm actually going to be hosting through the practice, I'm going to be hosting a day retreat for the summer. So it's going to be a faith-based day retreat. The last time I did it, it was like 9 to 5-ish. Okay. So it does take up like a good chunk of the day. It'll be like talks, some exercise on healing, and some small groups and stuff. So if you're interested, you can email me with my name, Ana Maldonado, ANA. I'm actually, y'all can put it in the show notes.
We'll link it. Don't you worry.
Yes, link it down below. But with my name, Ana Maldonado, at counselingforlifellc.com. So you can email me if you'd be interested in going. I would love to have y'all come. It is a young adult one. So like 18 to 30 is the general age range. We're not going to be like rigid about that, but
we'll be just in there.
We'll be in there.
Yes. We'd love
Do you know
to
when it is?
What's the date?
We don't know the date yet, actually. So that's why you should email me. June or July, but I haven't.
Okay. So this summer. Gotcha.
Yes, this summer. Come hang out. Come hear me talk more about stuff.
Yeah, I like it. That sounds cool. So yes, we'll link that, and we'll link the website, all the good stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're stopping that episode. Just a little short.
That's right.
It ended up being like, I think we got almost a full hour with her, which is good.
It was perfect.
But it's a lot of information, so I just think it's better to kind of split it up. So we had our talk on cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. So next week we'll continue with EMDR
MDR.
and then internal family systems, and do a little bit, kind of at the end, we kind of wrap it all together and talk a little bit about how they
finding a therapist.
Yeah, about finding a therapist,
like
how stuff can kind of tie in together. But yeah, and so we just wanted to split this up for you guys for sure.
Yeah, so we look forward to next week when we take a breath and take a listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us, and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.